Hello Chipmunk and Chipette fans, my name is Grandy Tamayas, and welcome to another Alvin and the Chipmunks Elaboration podcast. Today's topic being, should there be more Alvin and the Chipmunks toys, particularly for the 2015 series? Now yes, I know there are technically still Alvin and the Chipmunks toys, just coming out at a much slower rate, and most of them are just plushies, knickknacks, or other merchandise like books and food containers, stuff like that. But I'm talking about an actual full-on toy line, similar to what we had a few years ago with the Fisher-Price Alvinnverse figures, the ones based on the 2015 series. The first wave came out in late 2016, I believe, or at least that's when I first remember seeing them at Toys R Us, when it was still a thing. I also saw them at Target and Walmart stores for a while, but after they went on clearance there, Toys R Us was the only place that continued to stock them until their bankruptcy and closure in 2018. But they only stocked the first wave, or maybe two waves, because I got the Super Skatin' Park playset with Alvin, as well as the Christmas version of the Alvin talking plush doll. I don't remember those being part of the original lineup. There was supposed to be another wave or expansion after that, which included items such as a toy of the Monkmobile, basic plush versions of Jeanette and Eleanor, and a remote control Alvin skateboarding toy. Unfortunately, those were cancelled in North American markets. I think some of them were sold in Europe, but I have not seen any in-tan images of those products. And since those were supposed to come out like 3 years ago, I think it's pretty safe to say that the 2015 series toy line is now discontinued. Which is really sad, honestly. There were so many things they still could have made from the series, like the Chipettes' Treehouse. They could have done an opening dollhouse kind of thing that can interact with the figures. But as for why the toy line was discontinued, that's something I can't answer definitively. Maybe it underperformed, in which case it could have been because it came out midway into the second season instead of during season 1 when viewership was most popular. I also don't recall ever seeing any advertisements for the toy line, like commercials, so that may have played a factor. Or it could have something to do with the companies involved. Bagdasarian was having some trouble making deals with other companies a while back, so that's why there was that whole Chipmunk fan channel crisis on YouTube last year. If that was the case, maybe Mattel decided to pull the plug sometime before then, but now that Bagdasarian has been getting their copyright back under their control, hopefully they can more easily convince other companies of all types to make deals with them. Even though the series is still expected to last until at least 2025 with 7 seasons, I don't see a likely chance that we'll see any sort of new toy line based on it, much less the Fisher-Price one being revived. New products are probably only going to be limited to some of those smaller things I mentioned earlier, because we do seem to get new variations of plush toys every once in a while. But assuming we do get new toys of some kind at some point in the future, for whatever series, I wonder how the quality of it will be compared to the previous toy lines. Personally, I hope we get some more collector-friendly figures, if you know what I mean, like figures of the Chipmunks and Chipettes that have better articulation, a much more detailed likeness to the animation models, and maybe a few accessories. Those Fisher-Price figures were going for about $5 or $6 US, but for 10, 12, or even 15, we could get much better representations of the characters that are worthy of being displayed on a collectibles shelf. But considering how single-digit age-centric the toys have been in the past, as well as the cartoon to an extent, I doubt any companies would consider putting effort into making higher quality ones for the older fans, especially if they think the fandom is too small to warrant that. And speaking of the fandom, toys and toy lines don't seem to get a lot of recognition even decades after their discontinuation. Actually, most pieces of non-music Alvin and the Chipmunks merchandise in general end up being mostly forgotten, and the same will probably be true for the Fisher-Price toy line in 5 or 10 years. Heck, we're kind of seeing the effects of it already. Although, now that I think about it, maybe Bagdasarian intentionally didn't want to devote a lot of their advertising and merchandising budget to toys because they don't want the show to eventually become dependent on it, because there are quite a few examples of kids shows like Young Justice being cancelled due to a decrease in toy sales. And I think Alvin and the Chipmunks is one of those few shows that the networks have left alone, in fact allowed them to have 7 seasons, because a licensed toy line is a risk for money loss, and why the networks have gotten so picky with which shows they want to promote and why. Take Paw Patrol, for example, aimed at even younger kids. That show has been going on for a long time now, and it has a huge amount of dedicated merchandise. You just see them everywhere. And the day that sales drop far enough, that's the day they cancel that show. Bagdasarian, as a family-owned and operated company, puts a lot of pride into the shows and music, so to become dependent on merchandise, especially toys, it just wouldn't really reflect their values on why the brand and characters are such a cultural phenomenon. That might be why they've kept their toy line presence so low. Now, I was going to go off on a huge tangent about Bagdasarian's views on merchandising and how they've been protective of the characters and keeping their integrity, but I'm going to save that for another time. So I think I'll end things off here. Feel free to let me know in the comments if you agree with me on why there's been a lack of toys and any of the other points I mentioned earlier. If you have a suggestion for an Alvinnn and the Chipmunks topic that you would like to see me elaborate on in the future, please leave it in the comments as well. Don't forget that you're also welcome to check out my channel for similar videos, leave a like, and subscribe if you would like more content like this. With all that said, thanks for your time, and I hope you enjoyed.